Drew and Stephanie Jenkins, at what point did you think a new PlayStation controller was a priority? You are living in a motel room with 7 people, 5 kids, and you thought, oh, I didn't take care of my own belongings. I have to go replace my own things that I didn't take care of. Have you lost your mind? Have you lost your mind? Also, I hear you didn't show up for the custody agreement yesterday. You just think that the law doesn't apply to you? That's not how that works. Stephanie, you're not that boy's mom. You're not. Period. That's the end of the sentence. There's actually nothing more to say. You're not his mother. Give him back to his mom. Girl, what are you doing?
Stephanie and Drew are making it impossible for the kids to stay healthy. Let's not sugarcoat it. Their one-room motel living situation is officially turning into a danger zone for the children. Moldy beds, damp clothes, bad smells, no fresh air. It's not just uncomfortable, it's harmful. And the worst part, these 2 adults don't seem to care. It's like their common sense took a vacation. Let's go step by step and break down exactly how they are creating a living nightmare for 5 innocent children. Stephanie recently uploaded a video talking about her laundry day with Drew. She said the dryers at the laundromat didn't work, so she brought the wet towels back to the motel and hung them in the motel's rusty metal fence. That's right, the fence, not cleaned, not disinfected, a public fence in front of a busy shared motel that has probably seen everything from spilled drinks to animals passing by. She didn't even think to wipe it down before hanging towels her family would use later to dry off their bodies.
I can't say why, but for whatever reason, I had a gut feeling that I was going to end up drying all this laundry myself, and that's what ended up happening because the dryers just didn't work at the laundromat. So I did hang up the towels outside because it was literally like 85, 90 degrees outside. And then I came back inside. What I was going to do was just kind of fluctuate the stuff that was outside, take a little bit at a time. But I noticed by the time I got back in, everything was already starting to dry just by laying on the beds. So I spread everything out between a couple of the beds. And then I just put the rest of the towels and everything outside, and it all dried within like 30 minutes. And I'm not even sure why I said I can't say why. I guess with my experience when it comes to laundromats, I do know the dryers don't always work unless you run them a few times. And we didn't have the time for that today. So we shoved everything in the car when it was kind of half dry. And I told Drew, I'll take care of it while you're doing gig work. Don't even worry about it. I'll figure it out. I won't say that didn't throw me off a little bit because I did decide that with that on top of everything else I wanted to get cleaned up for the night, we were just going to go ahead and do pizza for the night. And our kids swear that they would rather just have frozen pizza in the air fryer than us order pizza. They say it just doesn't even taste good. So, all right, frozen pizza, kiddos. Also, if you're wondering why I brought this mattress back from storage, we brought it because if you remember, Bubba likes to jump on something. So, yeah. Okay, thank you for watching.
Then inside the motel, things got even worse. She piled the rest of the wet clothes all over the tiny cramped room. Some were flung over the bunk bed rails. Others were dumped across the beds like heaps of forgotten laundry. Stephanie said in the video that they started drying there, as if that's a normal or effective way to dry anything. Let's pause and really think. How in the world do soaking wet clothes dry when they are jammed together, laying flat on each other, on a bed with no airflow, in a humid motel room? Anyone who's ever done even one load of laundry knows the answer. They don't. They stay wet. And worse, they start to smell. That kind of damp stench that hits your nose and makes your stomach turn. It doesn't just go away with time. It stinks into the fabrics, into the air, into everything. Now think about this. The same air in the motel room is already heavy with smell of fried pork, fried fish, and washed dishes and bodies moving around in tight space. Now mix that with wet clothes, releasing moisture into the air. The smell isn't just bad, it is suffocating.
Stephanie Jenkins said that she did not have enough time to dry her clothes with a washing machine, so she decided to do it the old school way, the manual way, and wash or dry clothes outside. Make that make sense. She said it took 30 minutes to dry clothes outside. Why couldn't you take 10 to 20, half the laundry load that you have, and dry it that way? Like, that's how you know she's on math. Because she's like wiping power cords, cleaning the same spots over and over again when she's mopping. And to be quite honest, like, I really don't understand. why she decided to basically grab all her wet clothes and put it on top of the bed. Like, I can smell the mold from over here. I can smell the toxicity of that damp spot that's going to be all over her kid's bed. And that's not normal behavior. Maybe it's just me, but why would it be okay to put damp clothes on a bed and then have your kids sleep on a wet bed? Go ahead and answer me, because I need answers, Miss Jenkins. And I know before you come for me, it's not Miss Jenkins, it's Miss Thompson. It's not that deep.
And here's really what breaks hearts. Most of those wet clothes weren't just dumped on any bed. They were thrown on Deshaun's bed. Yes, that same bed they decorated last minute for his birthday. A bed that should have been his safe space, his comfort. And now, it's likely soaked through, smelling of mold and mildew. A child, already going through enough, forced to sleep on a mattress that's now a sponge for filth. And yet, Stephanie didn't bat an eye. No concern, no comment, just business as usual. Why not use the dryer again? Stephanie said the machines didn't work, but in reality, it's likely she overstuffed the dryer. Anyone who's ever used a laundromat knows if you cram too many clothes in, they won't dry. Instead of splitting it up and running another cycle, she just blamed the machines and left. She claimed she didn't have time to wait.
This is why their mattress looks like this, because they put wet clothes, and by then I mean Drew Jenkins and Stephanie Thompson from the Resilient Jenkins, will place wet clothes on top of their baby's bed. What is that on the bed right here? I see a screenshot. Is that mold? Like, that looks so not sanitary and not safe to sleep in. And also, like, this is a video of Drew basically talking about how the older kids went to the splash pad, but he stayed to clean with Atlas. The sensory-seeking Atlas. Weren't you just talking about how, and by you I mean Stephanie Jenkins, about how he needs a trampoline or a mattress to bounce up and down on top of, which I'm guessing it's that other mattress. I'm not quite sure. Why not take him to, like, get all the sensory stimulation that he needs to the splash pad? Why does he have to stay home with a father who doesn't talk to him, interact with him, model the behavior, the expectations? Like, parents of the year.
Let that sink in for a moment. Stephanie Jenkins, the same woman who proudly films herself wiping down the same dusty corner 3 times in one day, the same woman who deep cleans her charger cords as if germs are planning a coup d'etat, suddenly had no time. No time to let the dryer run one more cycle. No time to ensure her kids' clothes wouldn't turn into moldy rags. What exactly is she doing all day that's important? Filming herself pace back and forth in that cluttered motel room? And then there is Drew, the flexible gig worker, the one who clicks in whenever he feels like. No fixed hours, no boss breathing down his neck. So what's the rush? What was so urgent that they couldn't wait 20 extra minutes to properly dry the clothes? There was no doctor's appointment, no job interview, no emergency. They weren't racing against anything but their own impatience. They could have waited. They could have gone to another laundromat. They could have even asked for help or made a second trip. But instead, they dragged damp, soggy clothes back into a poorly ventilated, already cluttered room with 5 children. They didn't just bring back laundry. They brought back mildew, bacteria, and the beginnings of a health hazard. And for what? Because they didn't have time. Let's be clear. It wasn't about time. It was about effort. And they didn't want to make any. Now the whole motel smells like it. And the kids are the ones living in it. Where were the kids? This part is even scarier. Stephanie didn't say where the kids were while she and Drew went to the laundromat. But based on everything she shared, it's pretty clear the laundry took up the entire car. Trunk packed, backseat full, clothes everywhere. So the kids weren't with them. That leaves only one possibility. They were left behind, alone. Alone in a one-room motel, a public place filled with strangers, no locks on the main door, and who knows who walking past every hour. That's not just a bad idea. That's dangerous. That's terrifying. Why couldn't one of them stay back with the kids while the other did the laundry? Seriously, was Drew folding towels? Was Stephanie too busy loading the washer to even think about her children's safety? This wasn't a job that needed two adults. This wasn't rocket science. It was laundry. One could have easily stayed behind, kept the kids safe, and maintained some normalcy in their already chaotic life. Instead, they both left, like it was a date, like the motel was suddenly a safe place to leave 5 kids without supervision. As if nothing could go wrong, but everything could. What if one of the younger kids started choking on something? What if one wandered near the stove or reached a plug? What if someone knocked on the door pretending to be hotel staff or worse? What if the kids, scared or bored, opened it? These kids are still so young. They don't know how to respond to emergencies. They don't know who is safe or dangerous. They need parents who are present, alert, and thinking 10 steps ahead. But instead, they got Stephanie and Drew, who keep showing us time and time again that their children's well-being are never the top priority. This isn't just a lapse in judgment. This is a recurring pattern. A pattern that shows just how deeply disconnected they are from the realities of parenting. And this moment, it's a clear sign that their negligence could one day lead to something irreversible. That's what makes this so upsetting. That's what makes it so heartbreaking. Cable wiping and unsafe spaces. Once they got back, Stephanie started wiping down charger cords instead of drying clothes properly. Let that sink in. She had enough time and energy to clean wires, but not to make sure her children's clothes were actually dry and safe to wear. It wasn't about being clean. It was about pretending to be productive. This was performative parenting. Plain and simple. Anyone watching could have seen it. She was creating the illusion of being busy while completely ignoring the bigger, more urgent issue sitting right in front of her. Wet clothes, poor hygiene, and her children breathing in damp air. And it gets worse. All those cords she was wiping, they are bunched together in one overloaded extension plug, plugged into a single outlet right next to the only doorway in that small motel room. That's not just inconvenient, it's reckless. The cords twist around each other like a fire trap waiting for a spark. Who are constantly walking, crawling, and playing in that cramped space are at a risk every time they move near that area. One accidental tug and the entire setup could go up in smoke. This isn't paranoia. It is a very real safety risk. Frayed wires, overloaded circuits, one minor surge could cause flames. And in a space as tightly packed as that motel room, there would be no way out fast enough to protect everyone. And the saddest part, the solution is so simple. A basic rubber mat, a cord cover, a small investment of money and care. Even rearranging the cords and placing them behind furniture would be an improvement. But instead of thinking through how to make the space safer, Stephanie just wiped the cords like it was a chore off her list, like that was enough. She chose surface level effort over actual problem solving. She picked appearance over protection. And once again, her children are the ones stuck living in the consequences of her shallow decisions. Every day, they are surrounded by things that could hurt them, not because Stephanie couldn't afford better, but because she doesn't think better. More clutter, more chaos. Stephanie also revealed that she bought another whole mattress for Booba because he likes to jump. Now on the surface, it sounds like a loving, thoughtful gesture for a child. But in reality, it's just another example of poor decision making. That would be sweet if they had space, but they don't, not even close. This motel room is already bursting at the seams. Every inch of the floor space cramped with something. piles of clothes that haven't been sorted, bags of snacks and fast food containers, stacks of dishes, some dirty, some clean, who knows anymore. Then there is the laundry. Then there are the kids. And now, a whole extra mattress? It's not just clutter, it's chaos. This is sensory overload for anyone, especially children, already dealing with the instability and neglect. For kids like Boba, who may already struggle with overstimulating or need structure, adding one more bulky object to this disaster zone is just another obstacle. There is no space to play, no room to move, no peace, just a pile of stress and noise and confusion.
Wondering why I brought this.
You just bought Drew a $100 PlayStation controller. You can't buy Bubba a $20 kids trampoline? Girl, knock it off.
The dryers just didn't work at the laundromat, but I noticed by the time I got back in, everything was already starting to dry.
Are you trying to convince us like we don't do laundry? Girl, those were damp and stinky. They're not drying in a pile on the bed. Who are you trying to convince? Are you trying to convince us that do laundry that putting damp clothes in a pile on a bed dries them? It doesn't. We know it doesn't. Girl, we've all tried it. We've all done it. Like, we've all done that. Where you're like, you know what? It'll just dry. It doesn't. They're stinky. And then you got to wash them with vinegar because they're stinky. Vinegar and then some more detergent because they have that stinky, damp smell.
And here's the kicker. This didn't need to happen. A small $30 trampoline could have given Boba a safe, designated space to jump and release energy. It could have been folded away, used outdoors, managed responsibly. But no, Stephanie didn't think of that. Instead, she brought in a full mattress, not for sleep, not for necessity, just for bouncing. Meanwhile, she had no issue spending $80 on a gaming pad. That money could have gone to a toy for her child, a comfort, a tool for play. But once again, we see who comes first in her priority. It's not the kids. It's never the kids. It's always Drew. And the ones who pay for that are the kids crammed in a room with no room left for them at all.
Drew and Stephanie Jenkins, at what point did you think a new PlayStation controller was a priority? You are living in a motel room with 7 people, 5 kids, and you thought, oh, I didn't take care of my own belongings. I have to go replace my own things that I didn't take care of. Have you lost your mind? Have you lost your mind? Also, I hear you didn't show up for the custody agreement yesterday. You just think that the law doesn't apply to you? That's not how that works. Stephanie, you're not that boy's mom. You're not. Period. That's the end of the sentence. There's actually nothing more to say. You're not his mother. Give him back to his mom. Girl, what are you doing?
Dinner depends on Drew. Stephanie once said the kids don't eat dinner until Drew gets back from his gig job. That means if he's out until 9 p.m. or even later, those kids are just sitting there, hungry, waiting, not because there's no food, but because Stephanie decided dinner doesn't start until Drew walks through the door. Let that sink in. These children, their bodies are still growing. They need energy. They need consistency. Waiting until nightfall to eat isn't just uncomfortable. It's harmful. It messes with their routine, their digestion, their sleep, and their stability. What parent thinks that's okay? What responsible adult sees a child hungry at 6 p.m. and says, wait until your stepdad's home? Kids need structure. They need to eat at regular times. Meals should be about nourishing the body and feeling safe, not about waiting on a man who chose to stay out longer. And let's be real, this isn't about family bonding or eating together. It's about control. It's about putting Drew's preferences above the kids' needs again. It's just another example of how these kids are constantly made to adapt to the adults when it should be the other way round. The stench cocktail. Let's paint a full picture. 1 room, 5 kids, wet clothes hanging off every surface, the thick smell of fried pork and fish from the night before still floating in the air, a dumpster sitting just steps outside the only door, baking in the sun and pushing the stink straight into the room. Mold growing silently inside damp mat towels that dried on rusted motel fences are now resting on skin. No open windows, no fans, just heat, humidity, and human breath swirling together in one unventilated space. You walk in and it doesn't just smell, it hits you like a wall. The air is heavy, sticky, almost unbreathable. Your eyes start to water from the mix of grease, mildew, and whatever else is growing in the corners of the room. It's the kind of space that makes your stomach turn before you've even taken your second step. And these kids, they don't get to step out. They have to live in it, sleep in it, try to eat in it, wake up and go to bed surrounded by a rotating storm of smells, noise, and stress. No wonder they want to stay outside most of the time. Who wouldn't? The motel room isn't just uncomfortable. It's a slow brewing health hazard, an environment no child should ever be forced to call home. Emotional toll on the kids. These kids aren't just suffering physically, they are emotionally exhausted. This isn't the kind of exhaustion a nap or a snack can fix. It's the kind that comes from carrying emotional weight that no child should have to bear. The kind that builds over time when every single day feels unpredictable, messy, and unsafe. It's what happens when a child feels like an afterthought in their own home, when there is no one truly paying attention to what they need. All they know is clutter, mess, neglect, and now mold. They wake up surrounded by it. They go to sleep surrounded by it. There is no moment of relief, no breath of fresh air, no space where they can just be kids. There is never quiet, never calm, just constant buzz of noise, shouting, tension, and discomfort. They don't get to enjoy being kids. They don't get to run, play, or giggle without tripping over cords or dodging heaps of wet laundry. Their world is piles of clothes, tangled wire, loud arguments, and stale air. They don't get toys that make them feel joy. They don't get dinners filled with laughter. They don't get bedtime routines that end in storybooks and hugs. They get what's left over. They always get what's left over. No warm beds, no clean pajamas, no sense of peace. The only way they get fresh air is if they're outside, away from the place that's supposed to be their home. The only time they feel like they can breathe is when they escape. And that's what makes this even worse, when your surface place feels like a prison. What does that do to a child long term? Just more clutter, more noise, more stress, more emotional damage piling on top of the physical, more adult problems they never caused but have to live with anyway. And no one is coming to fix it for them. This isn't a childhood. This is survival. And it's slowly breaking them down. And it's absolutely heartbreaking. Stephanie and Drew, the real problem. Let's be honest, this isn't about poverty. It's about priorities. Stephanie and Drew aren't helpless. They are careless. They're not too broke to do better. They are too unbothered. They don't make choices that protect or uplift their kids, even when those choices cost nothing but time and thought. They constantly make decisions that center their own convenience and comfort, even if those decisions hurt their children in the process. They choose comfort over responsibility. They choose quick fixes over long-term solutions. They choose chaos over order, and not because they are forced to do so, but because doing better requires effort, reflection, and maturity. And that's work they're just not willing to do. They could try harder. They could start small by putting their children first just once in their day. They could make safer decisions. They could sit down and think, even for 5 minutes, about how to make life better for their kids. They could ask for help. They could admit fault. They could show their kids that change is possible. But they don't, and they never do. And every single time they don't, it's their children who end up carrying the burden. Not just in physical discomfort, but in emotional confusion, instability, and harm. This isn't just neglect, it's chronic selfishness wrapped in excuses. It's a lifestyle built around shortcuts, and the people paying for it aren't the ones making the choices. They are the ones too small to have a say. Final thought, this motel could have been made livable. It could have been cleaned, organized, and kept safe. But instead, Stephanie and Drew made it worse, much worse. Now the kids are paying the price. How long must these children suffer under parents who won't grow up? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more updates, because sadly, this isn't the end of the story.